I sent my sister one simple text while she was at a business meeting. I had no idea that text was about to throw her entire career into chaos, expose a high-stakes deal, and get me labeled as a corporate whistleblower, all from a hotel room I was never supposed to be in. It all started when I was just sitting at my desk, scrolling through my phone. A message popped up from my sister, Lena. It said, "Late business meeting at the Grand View Hotel, room 412. Might be a long night." Lena had been working these grueling hours ever since she started her new consulting job. I just figured she was venting, about another endless day. But something about that message felt off. Why mention the room number? It seemed too specific. I just shrugged it off. She was probably just exhausted. I sent her a quick reply. "Hope it's not too brutal. Text me if you need a coffee run." I put my phone down, not knowing that casual text message was about to unravel a mess I could never have imagined. Lena has always been the organized one. She's the sibling who color codes her planners, the one who never, ever misses a deadline. This new job, though, it seemed to be pushing her to her limits. She was traveling nonstop, meeting clients in these sleek, expensive hotels and conference rooms. She always had this smile plastered on her face, but I could hear it in her voice lately. She sounded drained. She'd been mentioning odd things like clients who were a little too friendly or meetings that felt less like business and more like interrogations. I just chalked it up to corporate life. But that text, room 412, it stuck in my head. Why a hotel room for a business meeting? My gut started to churn, and I just couldn't shake this feeling of unease. An hour went by. No reply from Lena. That's when I started overthinking. What if this wasn't a normal meeting? You read these stories, right? Shady deals, creepy bosses taking advantage of late-night work. My fingers hovered over the phone, and I sent another text. "Hey, you okay? Weird vibe about this hotel thing." I just stared at the screen, waiting for those three little dots to appear. Nothing. My heart started to race. Was I just being paranoid? Or was something really wrong? I couldn't wait anymore. I grabbed my keys. I decided I was heading to the Grand View just in case. The hotel lobby was ridiculous. All marble and chandeliers, the kind of place that just screams money. I felt completely out of place in my hoodie and jeans. I marched right up to the front desk and asked about room 412. The clerk just raised an eyebrow and told me they couldn't share guest information. Frustrated, I pulled out my phone and texted Lena again. "I'm downstairs. You good?" Still, no response. My imagination was going wild. Maybe she was stuck in some sketchy deal. Or worse, maybe someone had lured her there. I was pacing the lobby, debating whether I should call the police or just storm upstairs myself. Then my phone buzzed. Lena's name lit up the screen. "What are you doing here?" "Meeting's fine, just intense. Stay put." A huge wave of relief washed over me, but it only lasted for a second. Right after that, another text came through. "Actually, get up here. Now." My stomach dropped. I bolted for the elevator, ignoring the clerk's curious stare. The ride to the fourth floor felt like an eternity. My mind was just spinning with worst-case scenarios. Was she in trouble? Had my texts tipped someone off? I found room 412, my heart pounding, ready for anything. I knocked hard. The door swung open, and there was Lena. She looked frazzled, but she was unharmed. Behind her, the room was in complete chaos. There were papers strewn all across the bed, laptops open everywhere, and three people in expensive suits just loudly arguing with each other. "What is this?" I whispered. Lena pulled me inside. She explained in this hushed, rushed tone that her business meeting was actually a high-stakes negotiation with a rival firm. And my text, the one where I said I got a weird vibe, had completely spooked her team. They thought I was some kind of whistleblower. They thought their entire deal was compromised. The suits stopped arguing long enough to glare at me. One of them muttered something about security breaches. Lena, trying to keep the peace, just introduced me as her overly protective brother. The tension in that room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. But then the argument just resumed. Only this time, they were arguing about contract terms instead of my texts. I just stood awkwardly in the corner, watching Lena mediate the whole thing like an absolute pro. She was totally in her element, even if the situation was a total mess. I realized right then how much pressure she was under, juggling these corporate sharks and keeping her cool. After a few minutes, the meeting seemed to be back on track. I left, and Lena promised to call me later with the full story. Driving home, I couldn't help but laugh at how my innocent, worried text had turned a routine negotiation into a near disaster. Lena was fine, and I definitely learned my lesson. Next time, I'll call before showing up. But still, I couldn't shake the pride I felt watching her handle that chaos. Room 412 wasn't the danger I'd feared, but it was definitely a reminder of the crazy world she worked in. So I got home, and I was just pacing around my living room, still buzzing from the adrenaline. It was probably 2 in the morning when my phone finally rang. It was Lena. I picked it up immediately. "So," I said, "am I in trouble?" I heard her laugh on the other end, a really tired laugh. "You are an idiot," she said, but she didn't sound angry. "Do you have any idea what you did tonight?" She told me to sit down. "That wasn't just a meeting, you goof," she explained. "We've been trying to merge with that rival firm for 6 months. It was falling apart. The main guy, the one who was muttering about security, he was about to walk away, kill the whole deal." I started to apologize, but she cut me off. "No, wait. You showing up looking like you were about to start flipping tables, and that text, they genuinely thought we had hired some private investigator to dig up dirt on them. They thought you were the PI. I was speechless. A private investigator? Me? In my hoodie? "Lena, that's insane," I said. She laughed again. "I know. But in that moment, when you knocked, everything just stopped. The yelling, the posturing. It broke the tension. After you left, they were completely rattled. They thought we had some secret leverage." She told me that after I left, they all just sat in silence for a minute before the other CEO just sighed and said, "All right, let's just get this done." She told me they signed the main agreement. The deal was done. Her boss was thrilled. "So," she said, "while you nearly gave me a heart attack, you also kind of saved the biggest deal of my career. By accident. By being the most overprotective, paranoid brother on the planet." I could hear her smiling through the phone. "But seriously," she said, her voice turning firm again, "don't ever do that again. Next time, just order me the coffee. And please stay downstairs." The next morning, I was still half asleep when my phone started buzzing on the nightstand. It wasn't a call, it was just texts, one after another. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I groaned and picked it up. It was Lena. She had sent me a screenshot of her company's internal chat. I opened the image, my eyes still blurry. It was a message from her boss to their whole team, and it said, "Huge congratulations to Lena for closing the merger. Her negotiation tactics were unorthodox, but incredibly effective." I was confused. I was about to text her, "What does that mean?" when another message from her came through. It was a selfie. She was at her desk, holding a coffee cup, and in the background, someone had stuck a piece of paper to her office door. I zoomed in. It was a drawing of a stick figure wearing a hoodie, and underneath it, someone had written, "Beware, the brother." I started laughing so hard I almost fell out of bed. She called me a second later. "I hate you," she said, but she was laughing too. "You've been here 5 minutes, and you're already famous." She told me that the story had already ripped through the entire office. Apparently, the CEO of the rival company had called her boss that morning to say he'd never been so intimidated in a negotiation. He had apparently said, "I don't know who that guy in the lobby was or what dirt you have on us, but it's not worth the fight. You win." So now, Lena told me, everyone at her work was convinced she was some kind of ruthless, super-connected corporate spy who had a fixer on call. People were apparently being weirdly polite to her all morning, asking her if she needed coffee, if her office temperature was okay. Even the grumpy guy from accounting had given her a respectful nod. "They think you're my secret weapon," she said. "They're calling you the closer. I'm pretty sure my boss thinks you're ex-CIA." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard, all because I got a weird vibe and showed up in a hoodie. A few weeks went by, and things kind of settled down. The closer joke became a running gag between me and Lena. I thought the office stuff had blown over. That was until Lena told me her company was having a family and friends celebration party for the big merger. And she insisted I had to go. I tried to get out of it. Lena, no, I said. They all think I'm some kind of secret agent. It's going to be so awkward. She just laughed. Nope, you're coming. You're the guest of honor. You have to see what you created. So I put on a decent shirt, trying my best not to look like a corporate fixer, and went with her. The second we walked into the event, it was like the music stopped. People weren't just looking at Lena, they were looking at me. Her boss, the guy who had seen me in the hotel, walked right over. He was a tall, serious-looking guy. He put his hand on my shoulder, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "So, the brother. It's good to finally meet you properly." He had this weird half-smile, like he was trying to figure me out. I just stammered, yeah, nice to meet you too. Great party." He just nodded slowly. "I'm sure you've been to many parties like this." I had no idea what to say. I just grabbed a drink. For the rest of the night, people kept coming up to me, but they were weird about it. They'd introduce themselves, shake my hand, and then just pause, like they were waiting for me to say something cool or mysterious. One guy from marketing leaned in and whispered, "Just so you know, that rival company? They're still terrified of you." The best part was when I was near the food table and I heard those 3 suits from the hotel room, the ones who were arguing.
They were talking about me.
One of them said, "I'm telling you, look at his eyes. He's analyzing the room, probably looking for security flaws." I was literally just looking for the tiny hot dogs. I turned, and all 3 of them just went silent and stared at me. I just nodded, grabbed a plate, and walked away. Lena found me later, crying with laughter. "You're a legend," she said. "You're the most intimidating man in finance, and you haven't said a single word. S.O. This whole closer thing was funny for a while, but then it got weird." I get a call from Lena about a week after the party. She sounds really awkward, like she's trying to ask me for a huge favor. I'm thinking, oh no, what's wrong? And she says, "So, my boss, Mr. Harrison, he wants to have lunch with you." I was confused. With me?
Why?
To thank me for not ruining the deal? Lena paused, and then she just sighed.
No.
He wants to hire you. I literally dropped my phone. Hire me? To do what? I'm a student. I told her. She said, "I know that. But he doesn't. He thinks your overprotective brother thing was a cover story. He thinks showing up in a hoodie was some kind of power move. He has another negotiation coming up with this really difficult client and he wants to know your consulting fee to come and just
be there.
To just sit in the corner and observe." I couldn't believe it. I told Lena, "This is insane. I'm not a fixer. I'm a machine learning student. I write code. I don't intimidate CEOs." Lena just said, "I tried to tell him. I told him you were a student." And you know what he said? He said, machine learning. Analyzing patterns. Predicting outcomes. Very clever. Of course, that's his cover. He thinks you're even smarter now. I had to go to this lunch, just to clear my name, but I had a terrible feeling that no matter what I said, I was only going to make this myth even bigger, that IT gets worse. This ridiculous story somehow leaked outside of her company. I was at university, sitting in the computer lab, trying to finish this incredibly difficult group project. We were all exhausted, just arguing about our code. One of my group partners, a guy named Samir, was complaining about another group that was using a dataset we needed. "They won't share it," he said. "They're totally blocking us." I was half listening, just staring at my screen. And then Samir says, "Hey, wait a minute. Your sister is Lena, right? At that big consulting firm?" I looked up.
"Yeah, why?"
He gets this weird look on his face. "Dude, my cousin works there. He told me all about the Apex merger. He said you're the one who saved it. He said you're some kind of fixer that your sister calls in to handle negotiations." The other 2 people at our table stopped typing and just stared at me. I tried to laugh it off.
"What? No."
That was a huge misunderstanding. I just showed up at the wrong time. Samir just shook his head, smiling. Right, right. A misunderstanding. Sure. He leans in, and the whole group leans in with him. So, he whispers, you think you could come with us to talk to the other group? You don't even have to say anything. Just, stand there. Look observant. Maybe wear that hoodie. I just put my head in my hands. I wasn't the closer. I was just the guy who couldn't even get his own group project to work. I looked up at them and said, guys, I'm just trying to debug this code. And Samir just nodded. Exactly. Debug the situation. I like it. So I'm stuck. My entire project group is staring at me, and Samir is looking at me like I'm some kind of superhero. Come on, man, he pleaded. Just for 5 minutes. Just debug them. I finally agreed, just to shut them up. Fine, I said. I'll go talk to them. But I'm just going to ask. That's it. No fixing, no observing. I'm just going to be a normal person. Samir just grinned and said, whatever you say, closer. I groaned. I didn't even bother changing. I was still wearing the same hoodie I'd worn to the hotel that night. It was just comfortable. We all walked over to the other side of the library where the other group was working.